Good day everyone, so I'm a bit of a Mualani enjoyer, and when I see Mualani in a swimsuit then, no, it's really good, but that's not what we're going to talk about in today's video. I want to talk about the Genshin Impact 5.5 main event. Yes, I know I'm a bit late when it comes to reviewing the event because it's already passed, but what's so important about this event is the combat, and that is exactly what flew over everyone's heads. And why it's so important is because it really gives us a viable way to think about redefining the combat in Genshin Impact. Now, let me kind of show you what's happening. The enemies in the background were frozen in place. How did this happen? Well, I have a character called Kachina, and Kachina specifically in this event got a character specific buff, or if you will, alteration toward in her kit. So she can freeze enemies in place, and when she deals damage, then after a set amount, you can see there is the white damage that deals true damage hitting the enemies. Now you might say, well, okay, look, listen. I've got a Mavrika and an Aloy, I can hit 1 million melt easily. Why do I care about Kachina being able to trap enemies for 8000 damage? It kind of seems a bit pointless, doesn't it? Well, that's not really what you should be looking at. What you should be looking at is the fact that a unit in Genshin Impact had their kit modified for an event. And that is the key part here. If Genshin is supposed to keep all of their old characters relevant, if you want to bring in a good antidote to power creep, what you need to do is something creative like modifying character skits temporarily for certain combat events. And that is exactly what we should be thinking of, instead of just a spiral abyss with a big enemy with lots of HP where I'm gonna either stand in my Bennett circle or run around with Eonson and do big amounts of damage with all the new Natlan characters. What we should be doing is redefining the scope of combat, and that's what you can see here in the background. What I have to do is I have to defend a flag. I have to beat a certain number of waves of enemies. I've got even additional side objectives. Now you might look at this and you might be like, well, okay, this is not really that engaging. And I agree, there's still lots that can be done, but at least from if you think of this as like the bare bones or the framework towards changing combat and making it more meaningful in Genshin, this is one step in the right direction. A step in giving you terrain that is uneven. Enemies marching not to beat you up, but where you need to protect an objective, or you can substitute this in with any number of other goals. The ability for you to be in conflict between multiple objectives, as you'll see in just a bit as well. These are the sorts of things that we want in Genshin Impact. Something that's more dynamic than just here is the clock, here's the enemy's HP bar, good luck. You want things that are more dynamic because that means there's more replayability, there are more strategies that you can follow, and more importantly, for all the characters, for characters that are underpowered, you can breathe in a lot of new life. And the way to do this fairly would be to give characters modifiers, and then the next day another character gets a modifier, etc, etc. Effectively, my ideal vision for an endgame is that you have your Spiral Abyss, you have your Imaginarium Theatre, but then you also have other game modes like the one here in the background, which modifies character abilities, some sort of roguelike system, even a system where you could buy perks and talents or skill trees. These would be so cool. And what you do with all of these combat endgame modes is you just have a shared Primogem tally. So in other words, if someone just wants to get their 800 Primogems every 2 weeks or whatever, 4 weeks from the Spiral Abyss, they just do Spiral Abyss. But if they want to do a bit of Spiral Abyss and a bit of Imaginarium Theatre and a bit of a new endgame combat, then you can do a bit of each and still work towards your endgame tally. It's a system that I've been speaking about like for years and years, and it's a much better alternative than trying to gatekeep the endgame behind the only like the latest character banner units, which I think is just so flawed. flawed for a game like Genshin Impact. And that's the thing, you can see here in the background now, I've got 2 flags that I need to protect. So imagine this, you've got enemies that are just constantly spawning in, enemies that are spawning in simultaneously, you have to make choices, certain characters have modifiers. These are the cool things that I want. I want to see a list of 5, 6, 7, 8 different objectives. I want to see the conflict and the pain of making a choice, getting one thing done at the cost of another thing, because that is what makes the game interesting, agency. And I felt that this event really started going in the right direction. I'm using the overworld, which is so important because a lot of characters don't just have combat value but overworld value as well, and I want to see that come into how the game is working. And that is really what I liked about this event. I also liked the part in the story where you had to assault one team and then you had to defend the base. So for people that played the event, you'll know what I'm talking about. That was also cool. That's also another example of something that they can introduce. So from my perspective, this event was really fun, although I do think from the perspective of replayability and the content offering, it's still very much in its infancy of being a true endgame mode. I know the developers did this as a limited time event, but this is the thing. Just like in 2.1 with the roguelike event, the Genshin devs have all of the cool ideas, they've got the right systems and stuff in place, and for some reason they just don't want to make it permanent, but they'll put in that retarded TCG game mode and they'll keep updating it when literally no one plays it. Yeah, that's literally my feelings on it. It's just crazy when you have a game where you're supposed to collect characters, use the characters in combat, and the content offering is not there, but you're given all of these other things to do that have got nothing to do with the core of the game, the progress of collecting and leveling up characters. But in any case, I've got a hatred towards TCG if you can't tell. Regardless, the Genshin devs did something right. It's one step of at least 20 that still need to be made in the right direction. I just hope people will take it seriously, because currently what happens is that we do not get a wide selection or spread of community members giving positive feedback of the things that we want in the game. Instead, a lot of people will just keep on criticizing the game, and unfortunately what this means is that Hoyo is just going to be like, oh, okay, I'm going to close my ears, I'm not going to listen to the criticism, and instead they look at all the surveys that are filled out by 13-year-old Hu Tao mains that play the game for 30 minutes whilst they are on their way to school via the train in China. And the problem is, when that's the demographic that you listen to, the game is not going to improve. And it's such a shame, because there are really good ideas that come out. It's just that we need to, I don't know, in some way encourage the devs to keep on making more combat, to keep on putting that challenge. But I don't know whether it's just a community thing or whether there's someone in Hoyo, the upper management, that's kind of gatekeeping it. I don't know what the situation is, but certainly Genshin Impact is woefully underutilized in terms of what it can do, of where it can be, and how much fun they can make the content offering, in which case you would not then feel bad to, dare I say it, even spend money on the game. But currently there is nothing really worth your while to spend on, because everything is so limited. It's almost like there's so many guardrails in place, and it's just such a shame, because look here at the background, although the footage is like kind of sped up, I've just had so much fun here in the background with the event, and it's just like, this is the type of thing that gets you to play. But unfortunately I want more. I want more out of it, and we just don't get it. So I do what I do best in situations like these, and I basically kind of just break out of the map and do a bit of out of bounds exploration, because that's another form of self-imposed endgame that I enjoy. And basically here the overworld is kind of unloaded, I broke out of the challenge area, blah blah blah. It's the type of thing we do here on Kokomi Clan. Alright, I think that's it from my side. I don't think I've got anything else to say other than I enjoyed the combat. I think there's lots of potential for it as a template going forward, but other than that, we really need a bit more from the devs. Alright guys, let me know what you think, and thanks for watching. Cheers.